There is a factory in Dongguan, China, that builds the circuits inside amplifiers from brands you trust. Here is the test that exposes it. Weigh the unit. A 200-watt amplifier under 10 kilograms is almost always fake. Most modern amplifiers fail the same way, for the same 5 reasons. Here is what is actually inside the box you are about to buy. The power transformer. A serious amplifier needs a transformer, large enough to deliver its full rated power across every channel at once. That means real toroidal or EI core transformers weighing several kilograms. Cheap amplifiers use undersized transformers that simply cannot sustain the number printed on the spec sheet. Open the chassis and weigh it in your hand. A 2-channel amplifier claiming 200 watts per channel that weighs under 10 kilograms is almost certainly fake. A genuine amplifier in that class weighs 20 kilograms or more. Brands like Bristol build their power supplies the honest way, with industrial-grade transformers backed by a transferable warranty that assumes the unit will outlive its first owner. No sponsored gear, no manufacturer relationships, just what the technicians know. Verdict: if the transformer is light, the amplifier is fake, regardless of what the box says. The capacitor bank. Every amplifier depends on reservoir capacitors to handle the sudden power demands of real music. A serious design uses multiple large capacitors per channel. A cheap design uses capacitors small enough to fit in a coffee cup. Between 1999 and 2007, a wave of defective capacitors built with a faulty electrolyte formula flooded the global supply chain in what engineers call the capacitor plague. Motherboards, televisions, and amplifiers failed years early across every price point. The worst of that crisis passed. The underlying habit of choosing capacitors by price instead of longevity never did. Technicians who service modern equipment report measurable capacitor degradation beginning at 4 to 5 years, long before the rated lifespan on paper suggests. Brands like Pass Labs sit at the opposite end of that habit, building amplifiers so deliberately over-engineered that the capacitor bank alone would embarrass most of the industry. Verdict: the part designed to store power for the loudest moment in your favorite song is usually the first thing the industry decides to cut. The heat sink. A real Class AB amplifier needs serious heat dissipation to run continuously without its thermal protection cutting in. That means extruded aluminum heat sinks, visible and substantial. Cheap amplifiers use small stamped aluminum sinks that force the unit into short bursts of power before it protects itself by shutting down. Open the chassis. If the heat sink is small or stamped rather than extruded, the amplifier was never built for continuous use, only for surviving a demo in a quiet showroom. Sheet Audio builds amplifiers in California and Texas with exactly this kind of honest thermal engineering, at prices that make the corner cutting elsewhere look even more deliberate. Before the part that actually decides whether your amplifier survives the decade, if this is the kind of content you want more of, subscribe now. No sponsored gear, no manufacturer relationships, just what the technicians know. Quick question before we continue: have you ever opened up your own amplifier to check what is actually inside? Drop it in the comments. What comes next is not a hardware problem at all, and it is the one failure point most buyers never see coming: the output stage. Real amplifiers use multiple pairs of high current output transistors per channel, properly biased for continuous operation. A genuine 100-watt per channel amplifier typically carries 2 to 4 pairs per channel. Cheap amplifiers use a single pair that distorts heavily the moment you ask for real power. Count them through the vents if you can. 1 pair per channel means the amplifier cannot deliver sustained power, no matter what the spec sheet claims. Benchmark's AHB2 power amplifier is the standard bearer here. It is independently measured extensively documented, and built to a level of rigor the rest of the industry rarely bothers matching. Verdict: the spec sheet says one number. The transistor count tells you the real one. The shared power supply and the firmware trap. This is the failure point that has nothing to do with a single component breaking, and it is the one that ends the life of your amplifier even if every part inside it is still perfectly healthy. Most multi-channel AV receivers share a single power supply across every channel. That means the total power available is the same whether one channel is playing or 7 are playing at once. A 7-channel receiver claiming 100 watts per channel is, mathematically, assuming none of those channels ever exceed about 20 watts at the same time, which is exactly what happens during a real action scene. That is why home theater receivers so often sound thin and compressed exactly when the movie needs power most. Then there is the second half of this problem. Your receiver is not just an amplifier anymore. It is a computer running firmware that has to stay compatible with HDMI standards that change every few years. In 2020, several major brands launched receivers marketed as future-proof with HDMI 2.1. Within months, it was confirmed that those receivers could not correctly pass a 4K signal at 120 Hz. The implementation was faulty at the chip level, and a firmware fix was never fully delivered. The official solution was an external adapter box, sold separately 6 months after launch. An integrated amplifier from the 1970s has no firmware. There is nothing inside it to become obsolete. That is not nostalgia. That is the entire explanation for why it is still working. NAD's Master Series and Lingdorf both solve the power problem the honest way, with dedicated rails and serious engineering behind every channel, proof that this corner does not have to be cut. Verdict: even a perfectly healthy amplifier becomes obsolete the moment its compatibility, not its hardware, expires. So, what should you actually buy? If you genuinely need HDMI, switching for a home theater setup, buy the cheapest receiver that does the job, accept that it is a temporary tool, and budget for replacing it. Do not pay a premium for a finish on something fundamentally disposable. If what you care about is 2-channel music, the answer is simpler. A properly serviced integrated amplifier from the 1970s with new capacitors, clean contacts, and fresh thermal paste will still be running in 2050. No firmware, no app, nothing to expire. The rule has not changed. 3 words: heavy, continuous, serviceable. Every amplifier that fails those 3 tests is built to be replaced. Every amplifier that passes them is built to be owned. Here is the principle I want you to take away from this video. 1 sentence. The spec sheet is marketing copy. The badge is paint. The engineering inside is the only thing that decides whether the amplifier is worth owning. If this changed how you think about your next amplifier, subscribe. Which amplifier in your system has actually held up, and which one disappointed you? Drop it in the comments. See you next time.